Thank you very much. Once again, greetings to everybody, and thank you very much for the organization and the invitation. It is a great pleasure to be here today with you and to share with you our experiences from the side of the Hungarian government. I look at my watch to see how many minutes I have. I will, first we had this roundtable discussion, and we had the chance to talk about values. But let me, in my presentation, give a broader perspective and to bring in another aspect also, because the title is also Hungarian Economic, Demographic and Social Measures. And let me start first. I don't know if I can. How can I just go forward? Should I use this? Yeah. Okay. I will start once again with the fundamental law, because I think that is the starting point, that is the most important base that we define also in our fundamental law, what we think about the values and what we think about families. I won't read it again because I stated all these sentences, but to make it understandable, for us it was very important to have a fundamental law which represents the values that we are taking for important. So that is the base, and that is the fundament on which we are working on. And to give this broader perspective, I should tell you about the demographic situation of Hungary. And maybe for the first slide is a little bit too technical, seems to be too technical, but this fertility rate, which sounds weird, but it is a very important figure. A total fertility rate, it means that in general, how many children are born in a family. So that means that if you want to maintain the population, then at least you need to have 2 children in a family to be born. So there the fertility rate would be 2. It should be even a little bit higher because there is a natural loss also, unfortunately. So it should be around 2.1. But to maintain the population, you have to have a fertility rate over 2. And there you see the different member states of the European Union, where you see that the average fertility rate in the whole EU is 1.55, and in Hungary is below the average. And there you see also Croatia, which also has a fertility rate below the average. These are the numbers of 2013. And there I should tell you a little bit about this demographic crisis we are facing. This demographic crisis, or demographic winter, how it is called, it means that we are losing European population. Practically in all European states, there are literally two how do you say that? 2 countries where you don't, where the exceptions, thank you. I'm a little bit tired. I woke up in Minsk today, so I have quite a long journey for me. I mean, before I had a long journey today. Okay, so we have 2 exemptions, literally, but I would say that in whole Europe there is a demographic winter. I will show you some concrete examples about in Hungary too. I will come to this. I will come back to the last slide a little bit later. You can see that in Hungary we are losing our population also. That means that in the last 34 years there has been a constant loss in the Hungarian population. So that means that in a country, we are talking about a country of 10 million people. And in a country of 10 million, we have lost over 800,000 people. 860,000 people in actually not 35 but 34 years. That is a big loss. And this total fertility rate, which I told you about, is used to be 1.24 when it was the lowest, and now we brought it up, let's say, to 1.41, which is a great success, let's say, but still 1.45 fertility rate is very, very low. And we also have a phenomenon that we have to face in Hungary, and that is not a unique phenomenon in Hungary, but in different European states, that we are losing the population, those women who are in the age of bearing a child. So we will lose like 20. It will be a loss of by 20% of these women of childbearing age. And still, I will show you this not too positive perspective, because if you count with different fertility rates in Hungary, then you see that how the Hungarian population would change. And now we are in 2015. We are already below 10 million, and like if this fertility rate doesn't increase, well, with a big amount, then we will really go down to like 7.2 million people by 2060. 2060 seems to be far away, but it is not. And we are really losing a huge number of our population. And that is not only the case of Hungary, but that's the case of the European states in general. And here you see also the, no, I will come back to this later. This is the fact, and this is the situation. And I'm an economist myself. A lot of people say that you cannot solve this situation. I mean, come on, give up, or don't even talk about this, because for politicians it's not worth talking about negative perspectives. But we are, let's say, the first government who said that, no, this is the situation. You have to see that these are the demographic trends in Hungary. And if we don't want the Hungarian population to decrease this rapidly and this bad, then we have to change something, that we have to do something against. And of course, there are different answers to these challenges. And in different EU states, there are different answers. Some say, for example, that they would solve this demographic winter by migration. Some say that they don't want to change this demographic trends. Then we'll have a lower population. Then what happens? Then maybe our state would be a little bit weaker, but then what? So there are different answers. And here comes our answer, and I have to show you this, this picture, where you see that there is, in Hungary, there is a potential, there is an inner potential on which we count on. And why we say that for us, migration is not the response to demographic challenges. We can respond to demographic challenges by using or by strengthening this potential. Because on this picture you can see that there are two numbers. I try to explain this this picture to you. There is this fertility rate, which I told you about. This is the green part, and there the yellow part is the number of wished children. So it's very simply, it means that if you ask young people in Hungary how many children do they want, do they wish for, they say over 2. So in general, the number of wished children is over 2 in Hungary. And then at the end, only 1.41, there is no 1.41 child. So let's say that in 100 households or 100 families, 141 children are born. So that means that basically there is almost 2/3 of the people. That's not analysis. Microphone is also tired. Yeah. I'll change it. Yeah? Huh. Okay. So that means that when young people think about having a family, they plan to have 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, and at last they would they would have at least one more child, child less than planned. And that is our potential, that we started to look for the reasons why don't these people have these children they wish for. And that is actually our answer. And I consider this very important because we are, I mean, I go a lot of times to the media. I am very much, very often pose the question, how can you tell anybody how many children to have? How can you tell anybody how to, have a family? And I always say, and that is just the truth, that we don't tell anybody how many children to have. We don't even tell anybody when to have these children. That is not a governmental. That's not the government which has to say or tell anybody how to have children, when to have children, how many children to have. But if we see that there is a reason why Hungarian people don't have as many children as they wished, then we have to look for these reasons, and then we have to help them. And we, of course, have to give them information and, for example, tell them that if the age of having a child is becoming higher and higher, if women start to have children at a later age, then they will face the risk of maybe not having a child. So you have to inform people about these risks. That's our duty, and our other duty, which was also a question: what is the government's duty in this matter? I think is that there are so many burdens, and then I will come to the next. No, I should tell you about this first, okay? Because I will tell you what measures we introduced. But first, let me come back to this this picture also, the marriages. Because we talked about the marriages and the importance of marriages, and we consider that marriage is just the first step towards having a child. And we consider marriage also an important value which we have to defend and also promote. And that is very interesting. If somebody knows the Hungarian inner politics, then maybe understands a little bit more this picture, but I will explain it to you. Why do we think that the government has a responsibility in these issues, and then that it can also influence what we talked about just before, and you talked about it already today? I think how it has an influence, what the values, what a government takes for important, how can it influence the behavior of the population, or how the values of the population represented by the government can have such an influence. This is the number of marriages and divorces between 1990 and 2014. And there you can see on the picture, but I can tell you the exact figures. In the period between 2002 and 2010, when we were in opposition and there was another political party in governmental position, the number of marriages has decreased by 24%. In 8 years, 24%. And then from 2010 to 2014, in 4 years, it increased by 9%. So it is interesting. Even if I don't comment it, it's like you can exactly see the tendency, how it reflects the values represented by a government. And in the meantime, the number of divorces has decreased in Hungary. So I think that when in the meantime the number of marriages is increasing and the number of divorces is decreasing, then we are still we have already achieved something. And there you can see. That's what I just said. And then there comes the government family policy, what I wanted to talk to you about. And there I think what is the duty of a government? We have this demographic challenge to which we have to answer on one hand. And on the other hand, we just consider that having a child, bearing children, I'm so happy to see that many of you even have the children here with you. So you all who are bearing children, you know that having a child is of course a source of joy, a source of happiness, but in the meantime it is also a burden, a financial burden. To raise a child, it costs a lot of money. And when nowadays anybody is thinking about having an extra child or having the first child, it is not only an emotional decision anymore, it is also a financial decision. So there the young couple sits down and start to count what would it cost and if we can afford a new child or another child or not. Or, of course, depending on their belief or depending on their religion, some do this or don't, but in general, this is also a financial decision. And we just say that, and this is our duty as a government, that if we consider children and consider families being important values, then we have to lower these burdens, these financial burdens of the families of raising children. So that means that we would like that in Hungary to raise a child, it shouldn't be just more a financial burden than the source of joy. So that it should be what it is. It is really joy and not only dispenses. And that's the basic idea of our governance, that we say that we have to lower these financial burdens. And one more aspect, that we are talking about governmental duties, governmental responsibilities, but in the meantime, and the most important thing, our most important thought is that we are not talking about individuals. We are talking about communities, and we are talking about families as communities, and we are talking about bigger communities, of course. And at that point, when you are talking about the family and not only the individuals, then you are talking about not only the governmental responsibility, but also the parental responsibility, the responsibility of the parents, the responsibility of the family, so that it's not the state or not the government who will solve all your problems or who will raise the children for you. It should be you as parents, but we should make it possible for the parents to have energy, to have time, to have a possibility to focus on raising their children. So that is these are the main ideas. So the partial assumption of the burdens of bringing up children, a healthier balance between work and family. What is actually a healthier balance between work and family? Many of you who are working parents know that work-life balance is something that, I don't know if it exists at all. It's something that we face on a daily basis. Everybody who has a child and who has a career in the same time, no matter what he or she is doing. If somebody is having a child, then already, but if somebody is having a child and working in the meantime, that's really an everyday challenge to balance between the two. And you will always feel bad about not being a, let's say, perfect mother or father, or not being a perfect workforce. Of course, but we have to make it possible to have this kind of balance, and that means that if we want to fight or face this demographic challenge, also what we have now, then we have to have these experiences from all around Europe, where we see that now those women who don't see a chance of reconciling the two, of having this work-life balance, won't have as many children. Now more women would like to work and would like to have children in the same time. So we have to make this possible as much as we can. Then housing support and an environment supportive of families, raising awareness. I will tell you more about this. And these are some figures. I won't go much into details, but here you see the family benefits in cash by the percentage of GDP in Hungary. And there you see that in EU average, we are in a quite good position. And these are the figures of 2012, because we only have official figures from 2012 at an EU level. But I can tell you that it is much more now. So we are constantly raising the family benefits in the percentage of GDP in Hungary. here you see the numbers also, or the figures also, and this is the expected figure. These are in million euros, so that means that 2,657 million euros accepted for 2016. So that means that the expenses of benefits for families in Hungary is constantly increasing. And here I tell you just some important things about these tax and contribution allowances. That means that in Hungary, I would try to put it very simple. In Hungary, we have a family tax allowance system, which is quite strong and rich, and that means that the money you earn, that you don't pay it in the form of income tax, but you can deduce a certain amount of your income and then keep it basically at you in your pocket and give it to your children. I mean, you can raise the children from this amount. You can see the exact amounts: 32 euros per child for families with 1 or 2 children. We will raise actually the number for those with 2 children, and over 100 euros for families with 3 or more children. This is per month, so that's a monthly amount, which in Hungary is quite that's a big help for families raising children. That is, to put it really very simple, that actually means that with an average income in Hungary, if you are raising 3 or more children, then you don't pay any income taxes. And if you have if you can't profit of the whole tax allowance, then you can share it with your wife or your husband. So the 2 parents can put this tax allowance together, and then they would basically don't pay any income taxes, which is really a big help for the families. And we even made it wider, so that really now 95% of families raising children can benefit of this family tax allowance system. So I consider this a big help. And we also introduced from this year, from the 1st of January this year, like a first step or 0 step of this tax allowance system for first wed couples. So that means that even if they don't have a child, from the moment of the wedding, they would also get a tax allowance system. This is a lower sum. This is 16 euros per month, and that lasts until the first child is not born, but until from the 91st day after conception, you can already get a family tax allowance. That is the system. So until till the conception of, or the 91st day after conception of the first child, then you will get the family tax allowance system. And if a married couple won't have a child in 2 years, then they cease to get this tax allowance. So that is until they get a child, or for 2 years. Even if a 60 or 70-year-old couple gets married for the first time, that is also a criterion. So one of them should have his or her first marriage. That is a criterion. But even for a 60 or 70-year-old couple, they would get this benefit, but only for 2 years if they won't have a child. And we will double this family tax allowance for families with 2 children. Then these are just examples, because I could talk to you for hours about the Hungarian the system, how the Hungarian government supports families. But just to give you some examples, which is, for example, the child catering. That means that imagine, and this is, I think, quite unique in Europe, or even over Europe, that we give meal 3 times a day for those attending kindergarten or those attending school or creche. And this meal is free of charge for everybody whose family is in a more difficult financial situation. and we even widened it. So that means that from now, 1st of September this year, 320,000 children, I mean their families, would get free meal 3 times a day. I think this is something, this is also a big help, because I mean, you get good quality and good quantity free meal, and that you can really you can assure that these these children will get this meal at the kindergarten or at school, and that goes together with this new regulation which we introduced from this September, which is the mandatory kindergarten attendance from the 3rd year of a child. That is more a social measure, because that means, that guarantees that those children where the child's interest would be to attend a kindergarten already at the age of 3 or 4 or 5, before going to school, to get all these social skills which he or she lacks, for example, and to get this 3 times free meal also, then then for these children it's their interest to go to kindergarten. And it is only understandable if we also say that you can have how do you say that, you can have a I don't know this word in English, but if a parent asks that his or her child doesn't have to go to kindergarten, doesn't have to attend kindergarten, then it is possible that he gets or she gets I don't know how you say that, he or she gets this permission of not attending a kindergarten. So for example, let's pick a family where there are small children also around, and the mother would care of this other 3-year-old child very well, and she doesn't want her child to go to kindergarten, then she can ask for this, and she would get this permission of not attending a kindergarten. But it will always be in the interest of a child, because a 3-year-old child cannot decide either he or she wants to go to kindergarten or not, and sometimes even the parents are not in a position of making a good decision, unfortunately. So we are helping these children. And there is another system which we introduced that is about work-life balance, actually. And there, to understand this, then you have to know the old Hungarian system, and that means that before in Hungary, if you had a child and then you went back to work, then you lost the benefits, but what you got after the child, until the child got 3-year-old. And we changed the situation, and we said that a mother is a mother even if she works 8 hours a day, or even if she is at home with the children. Both solutions or both ways are equally valuable. And that's the other part which we introduced, that we made it possible once again for the mothers to stay 3 years long at home with the children. So it is in the same time possible to stay 3 years at home with the children and really raise the children at home if you can afford it, and if you are willing to do this, you can do this in Hungary. But in the meantime, if you are in a position that you have to go back to work because you need the money you earn at a young age of your child, or if you are eager to go back to work because you want to work while raising a child, then you have the possibility, and you won't have any loss of income. We make it more possible working in part-time. Just one example, in a law, we stated that if a mother raising children wants to go back to work in partial time, it's with small children, then the employer should make it her possible, so should give a partial working possibility. We also give extra holiday for mothers and fathers. We have a new baby bond. We have an Elizabeth program where we provide a holiday possibility for over 80,000 children. And there is one more interesting measure which I wanted to share with you. This week in Hungary, a lot of people consider it a pension system measure, but it is not. It means that if being a woman, you have 40 years of eligibility, we call, so either you worked and studied also, but you haven't reached the pension age, even then you can go to pension. And that means that we want the children to have grandmothers also. That is the basic idea, because nowadays a lot of children don't have the possibility or the experience of having the grandparents around them. So that would be that after 40 years of work, even if you are not eligible for pension, then you can stay at home. And over 140,000 women have already chosen this. We also have housing support, which is a quite strong measure, but I don't want to go to details. And these are the last slides, but an important aspect I wanted to share with you. This is the environment supportive of families and raising awareness. We say that we need NGOs, for example. We are working very closely with NGOs. We're working very closely with churches. And we need this family-oriented or family-centered thinking. We need to show that children, that families are important values, that you don't have to feel yourself ashamed, for example, because you have 5 children around you, but it is a value. We want to look up to those people raising children. So family-friendly thinking, family-friendly policies, we consider very important. We consider important having family-friendly workplace, and we are also having, like, let's say, campaigns. We are just launching campaigns now where we show the value, the importance of being a father or having brothers and sisters, for example. And that is a picture which I wanted to show you. We just have now this small logo, let's say. We use it very, very frequently now. That says in Hungarian, family-friendly country. With this picture, there you can see that it's either 2 children or 3 children, whoever sees it. But that is the concept, that we would like to live in a family-friendly country. We would like to have family-friendly thinking. And my very last slide is that we are also working on an international level, because we consider it very important that in the international fora we also put these questions into consideration, and to have the chance or have the possibility to talk about these issues, which we a lot of times miss on a political level, let's say. So we would like this to happen more and more often. So that is why we are organizing an international conference with the presence of our Prime Minister. It will be on the 5th to the 7th of November. The first one is, let's say, a political day. The second one is a more professional day. And the third one is a family day, where different programs will be offered for families. So you can see there the website also. You can visit the website, and I hope to see you in Hungary in November. Thank you very much for your attention.